Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks to all those who are already warming up the chat for us. Would like to remind everybody that we do have a chat feature, and please feel free to submit questions at any time during the presentation. I will look to get to those at the end. My name is Barrett Dastrup. I'm a marketing manager here at Weave, and very excited to dive into this. This is strategies to help patients keep appointments in the new year. And I just want to start off by saying we know what a big deal this is. You know, when we look at different industries and we look at the no-show rates, we've seen between 10% all the way up to 30%. When we look at the cost of a no-show, we've seen from $80 all the way up to $200. So we know that this is painful, and it's a big deal. And we're excited to dive into some strategies that can help you in your office really curb this. Before that, though, beginning of this year, we had a webinar with Paul Goff. And Paul Goff is a best-selling author. He's a CEO and founder in the physical therapy space. And he talked a little bit about this and how for his office, what he sees as the biggest culprit for no-shows and cancellations is really staff not following processes consistently. And then he quickly followed that up with, listen, that's not necessarily the staff's fault, right? There's often just a lack of processes and training to begin with. And so as we go through these strategies today, I just want everyone to think through how you can take these, turn them into processes for your office, provide your staff with the technology that they need to execute on those processes, and then also provide the training that they need so everyone's on the same page and you can be consistent with implementing these processes. And that's really going to help. So at a glance, here are the strategies that we're going to cover today. And you can see we're going to start right away with reminding patients. Now, reminding patients, not necessarily a new topic, but there's some best practices. There's some things that we want to really dive deep into that hopefully will give you some ideas of areas you can improve on. So with reminding patients, first things first, we suggest that you lead with texting, right? Over 99% of text messages are opened and read. 90% of messages are read within minutes of being received. So if your goal is to make sure that these messages are being seen, that they're actually getting through to your patient, nothing's going to beat texting. Like, of course, you want to take patient preferences into account, and not every patient is going to have a mobile number, but lead with texting and then add in these other methods, whether it's email, phone, even postcard, right? Make sure that you have a nice mix, but lead with texting. Second thing here is you're going to want to automate this, right? Your staff can be involved in so many different activities, and the most effective use of their time is not going to be physically texting your patients. So you're going to want to automate the texting, but you don't want it to be obvious that automation is being used. So here's an example. This is like a first generation message that we've all received. Hello, please reply yes to confirm your appointment at 11 a.m. on May 3rd at Farcroft Partners. Totally works, gets the point across. I can respond to this and show up at my appointment and everything's good, but it doesn't go deeper than that. There's no personalization. I'm not feeling connected to the practice really. And I know for sure that this is automation. So taking a step up from this, here's an improved version, little personalization. Hi, Blake. This is a reminder that you have an appointment on May 3rd at 11 a.m. with Farcroft Partners. Respond C to confirm. So again, huge step up, sounds more personable, more conversational, use the person's first name. And then that last sentence there, respond C to confirm is the kicker, right? That pulls me right out of the personalization. I realize, oh, okay, they're automating this. Again, not the worst thing in the world. We all get it, that those types of automation and those systems are being used. But take a look at this though, this third example. This is really the ideal. So, hi Blake, this is Emily from Farcroft Partners. I just wanted to remind you of your appointment May 3rd at 11 a.m. Does that work for you? And then you can see if Blake responds with a thumbs up. Wouldn't it be great if your automation system could recognize that thumbs up as an affirmative response? Well, with Weave and smart confirmations, that's what happens. So anything like sure, you bet, thumbs up emoji, those will all register as affirmative responses. And anything to the effect of I need to reschedule or I'll be out of town, those are going to register as negative responses, and your office will be notified that an action is required. So that is what we want to do. We want to make sure that we are minimizing this effect of automation. We make it feel like a real person's communicating. Next thing is we want to simplify. So we want to avoid things like this. Take a look at this message. Starts off great. Hi, Jake. This is Coastal Family Dental. Just a reminder of your appointment on July 12th at 8:30 a.m. FYI, we've also made some important changes to our billing systems. So please make sure you bring your insurance card to the appointment. See you tomorrow. Again, a lot of these at first glance don't seem like there's anything really wrong with them. But what we'd recommend is breaking this message out. Get that confirmation first. Focus on that confirmation. And then if you need to send a follow-up text with this important information about billing, you can do that. You can send an email. Figure out some other way to break these up to not make the message crowded and lose the focus on what you're actually trying to accomplish. So that's simplified. The next thing is to get the cadence right. So we want to toe the line here between sending too many messages, which we do not want to do, but sending enough that we stay top of mind, right? So what would a good cadence be? A couple suggestions. For a first example, let's consider like a patient that's scheduled their appointment 6 weeks to 6 months in advance, right? So what we'd recommend is first send a reminder immediately after the appointment's been made. Then send a reminder 2 weeks prior. There's really no need to send multiple messages in the interim. You know, your appointment's 4 months away. Not necessary. Just send a reminder 2 weeks prior, and then send a reminder usually 24 hours before. You could totally test 48 hours before or 72 hours before as well. But maybe start with 24 hours before and pick the appointment time that they're coming in the following day and send it that time. Likely, if they've chosen that appointment time, they have some availability there. Not a silver bullet, but definitely a rule of thumb to start with. Okay, so that's example number one. What about a patient that has scheduled their appointment 1 week in advance? How might that look? So let's say this is for a Monday morning. So again, we'd recommend sending a reminder immediately after the appointment has been made, and then sending a reminder on Friday morning. So that's the last business day of the week. They're about to hit the weekend. Make sure they're remembering that appointment come Monday. And then we recommend Monday morning sending one more follow-up. They've just finished that weekend up. Make sure that they're not forgetting. So those are some examples of cadences you could follow. With all of these, we recommend you sit down with your staff, come to an agreement together of what's going to be the best thing for us and for our office and our patient base. All right. And again, thank you for putting questions in the chat. We will look to get to those at the end of the presentation. Keep those coming. We'll get to as many of those as we can. So now moving to making canceling inconvenient. We'll start by just taking a look at an example message, right? So little text message between a patient and an office might go something like this. Hi, I have an appointment today, but I can't make it. No problem. Let's go ahead and find another time that will work for you this week. Great, thanks. So right off, this seems like a great patient interaction. We're being empathetic. We're helping them out. The patient will be pleased. But really what this is doing is training our patient that we're not super busy. We're making it too easy to cancel, essentially, right? So what if we tried something like this instead? Hi, I have an appointment today, but I can't make it. Sorry to hear that. Is there any possibility of you making it today? We actually won't be able to get you back in for at least 3 weeks. Oh, got it. Okay. Well, I'll shift some things around today and make it today. So we might not get that answer. That's the answer that we hope for. But at least with this second example, we're training the patient to understand that it's not that easy. You don't just reach out and we immediately accommodate, right? We want to be polite. We want to be empathetic. That's what sorry to hear that. Is there anything we can do, or can we work with you to help you come in today? Because it's not going to be easy to get back in. We want to train our patients to understand that our time is scarce and it's in high demand, right? So a couple examples of policies you might implement. This first point, the day before or same day cancellation, they're just not allowed to get back into the schedule for 3 weeks. Just period. That's a minimum. The second point here is you cannot reschedule if you're a cancellation same day or a no-show same day. You can't reschedule in a prime time appointment slot. And you could say something to the effect of, those slots are very high demand. Those actually book like a month in advance, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in advance. And so that's just not going to be a possibility. And then we recognize that the possibility of offending patients is a legitimate concern with these kinds of policies and practices. But that's why we say remaining consistent and using these with every patient interaction will really train your patients to understand that policy. And if you have some that do get offended and drop off, it's still going to be better for you in the long run to train that patient base to understand your time's very valuable and in high demand. All right, and then how about a late cancellation or a no-show fee? Should you implement something like that? We've definitely seen varied results with this, right? We've seen comments to the effect of, we do this and it's definitely increased compliance of keeping appointments. We've seen comments like charging is one thing, collecting is another altogether. Good luck. One thing though that might be interesting to try is when there is a no-show or a late cancellation and you go to reschedule, you take the patient's card down, you keep it on file, and you let the patient know that a late fee will be charged if that happens again. So requiring that card on file might be something to try there. Okay, now moving to managing your schedule. So the idea here, we want to greet patients promptly. We want to keep wait times low. And the idea, again, being if you respect their time, they'll be more likely to respect your time. And, first and foremost, like if you can have an assistant start appointments at their scheduled time, that can really go a long way. I know as a patient, when I get there at my scheduled time, if I have my name called almost immediately and I'm pulled back into a room and they just verify my information, ask me some questions, I'm fine with that. I feel like, the ball is rolling and we're getting moving, as opposed to just sitting in a waiting room and watching the clock. And that's really the second point. Like if you can't have an assistant start the appointment right away, make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep patients from just watching the clock. So whether that's free Wi-Fi, it's tablets for patient use, movies, those things that a lot of you, I'm sure, are already doing, but just reiterating how important that really is. I'm sure there's been times I can remember where a movie that I'm into is playing, and when my name does get called, I almost like don't want to go. So as I'm getting pulled back, I'm kind of watching the screen. So that's a great thing. Keep them from watching the clock. And then finally, if you're really behind, if necessary, pick up the phone. You might have to reach out and let patients know that it's a particularly busy day and their appointment time might need to be pushed, and they can expect a little bit more of a wait, whatever it is in those more drastic circumstances. Make sure that you're making patients aware of that. All right, so that's managing your schedule. Now, talking about incentives for being on time. So we have heard and seen examples of offices holding a raffle. This can be a monthly raffle, as an example, for showing up on time. So every time a patient is there at their scheduled time, you give them a raffle ticket. They can insert that or enter that into the drawing that's going to happen monthly. You could do something as big as an iPad for the gift. You could do something like a gift certificate to a local restaurant as the giveaway. One idea for having stuff to give away is we did a webinar called The Impact of Digital Marketing in Optometry. And Dr. Kevin Gee joined us for that. And he had a really great idea about marketing through the community. So he talked about how he spends very little money on ads. He has Google ads, but really outside of Google ads, he puts all of his money, time, and efforts from a marketing perspective towards getting into the community, getting into the schools, making friends with local restaurant owners, and marketing that way. And he specifically talked about how he used to buy like Starbucks gift cards, and he would give his patients those for these types of giveaways and stuff like that. And instead of buying physical Starbucks gift cards, now what he does is he made friends with the owner of a local coffee shop, and he got a digital code from the owner of the local coffee shop, and he can now just use that through Weave and send that to his patients. So when you're thinking about giveaways like this, look to the community and form these relationships, and then you can fill up, the pool of what you're going to be giving away with that kind of stuff. Thought that was a great idea. All right, now moving to gathering and reviewing cancellation data. So hopefully when you're getting calls and patients are canceling, you're not just accepting the cancellation and then moving on. You're actually taking down, well, what time are they canceling, right? You're gathering this data. What are the reasons for these cancellations? And then you can go back and you can look at that data, you can analyze it, and you can make changes in your practice based on that data. So let's say you notice an increase in cancellations between 5 and 6 p.m. And you realize, hey, patients are getting stuck in traffic. And instead of thinking it'll be okay to just show up a little late, they're just canceling altogether. Well, maybe you could just build in a time cushion for those appointments. You can let patients know leading up to the appointment that it's your policy, hey, between these times, we understand there's traffic. Still show up, you're not going to have any kind of penalty, and just educating the patients. So that's one example, but you could dive into your analytics if you're doing a good job of data gathering and figure out what's going on. Next up is updating information and scheduling in the office. So if you could just train your staff to confirm patient information, at least every 6 months or a year, every 6 months to a year, because your appointment reminders that we talked about at the beginning, or emails, whatever it is, they're only going to be as good as your information is accurate. So make that standard practice. Just check in with patients, make sure that information's up to date. And then that second point, scheduling the next appointment in office before the patient leaves. So this picture of someone just on their mobile phone, this is totally me after every dentist appointment, after every cleaning. I know immediately, I beeline to the front desk, I pull out my phone, because they are just incredibly consistent at setting up my next appointment right then and there. So I pull out my phone, I go 6 months in the future, we talk about a date, I put it there, I set a reminder, I know that they're going to remind me as well. And it's like 3 years since we moved to the city I live in now, it's like 3 years running of, I just know every 6 months. And so if you're not scheduling appointments, hopefully a lot of you are doing this, but if you're not scheduling appointments before the patient leaves, make sure you get in that habit. It's to the point now where if I left my dentist's office and we didn't schedule, I'd probably just go back in there and say, hey, wasn't I supposed to schedule my next appointment? So that really goes a long way. Now, with everything we've talked about up to this point, they've all been measures to cut down on the cancellations and the no-shows. And that's the ideal, right? But inevitably, we're going to have these cancellations. And so what's something we can do when these cancellations happen to still get patients in the door? And that's where quick fill comes in. So with Weave, you can have a quick fill list. You basically keep a list of all of those patients who've requested to be seen ASAP. And when a cancellation happens, you can send a text to that quick fill list. You can send to up to 10 patients at a time and let them know about that appointment slot that's just opened up. And you can send that right away. And you can see this quote from Little House of Smiles Children's Dentistry. They say, as soon as we send out the text messages, we get responses in 20 minutes, where before it would take us an hour to call all of the people. So huge deal here. Again, if we can keep cancellations and no-shows from happening, awesome. But when they do happen, what is our next move? And Quick Fill is a real lifesaver there. So those are the strategies. Those are the 7 strategies that will help you cut down on these no-shows, these cancellations in the new year. Hopefully you've heard some things that you're not implementing right now, that you can go back and meet with your staff and all talk together about processes that you can start implementing and staying consistent with. And again, don't forget the technology piece. A lot of what we've talked about here sounds really great, but you got to invest in the technology to help this stuff actually work, right? I want to make sure though, before we end, that we do answer any questions. So thank you for this question before, Rose. Oh, you asked if you could get a recording, and Dal's got you covered there. Perfect. Noreen, you mentioned, what if your EMR is already sending out appointment reminders? And that's a fantastic thing to bring up. You know, with Weave, when you're talking about Weave, there are a big list of EMRs, PMS systems that we integrate with. And so what we would recommend, if you have any questions about that, talk to our sales team, jump on and take a demo and figure out if your current EMR integrates with Weave and the extent of that integration. I'm not going to be able to just jump through everything right now, but check in with our team. And I will say, you know, we're often running promotions for those demos. So if you're not a Weave customer, jump on, take a demo with the sales team, see what Weave can do outside of what we've talked about here, and see if it integrates with your current system. Fantastic. Yeah, on the recordings as well, like Dal said, we will absolutely be sending out a follow-up email with this recording. And also at any time, you can go to getweave.com and go to our webinars section, and you can watch these webinars on demand. So please jump on over there. And it's not just this webinar. There's so many webinars that we do on a consistent basis, trying to help all of you with practice management. Already doing a great job, but there's areas that we can help you improve on. Can we see the list of 7 strategies? You bet you can. Let's go ahead and jump back to that. Heading on back. There we are. There's the list of 7 strategies. And while we're looking at that, let me look at this next question. For the cadence section, what's the best flow strategy for something like physical therapy where you have multiple appointments a week? That is a fantastic question. What I would recommend, the biggest takeaways from a high level is you do not want to become annoying and have people text stop or, you know, quit bugging me, I'll be there. So I would say go back and review the webinar with Paul Goff earlier in the year. I think that was February. Paul Goff is specifically in the physical therapy world, and he's got a lot of great tips that applies to physical therapists. So check out what Paul Goff has to say on that. And then I would just say, from a high level, make sure that whatever you're implementing, that you're testing and not just setting something and saying one and done. All right, here's our policy. Roll something out and see if it's working. You do not want to be annoying people. So keep track of those unsubscribes, right? And if people are getting annoyed or not. So great question. I believe we're just North America, so US and Canada. But again, something to follow up with our sales team. And yep, good question there. If Weave works in Australia or not. Okay. I guess the only other, hopefully you've had some time to take a look at this screen here. If there are no other questions, oh, hold up. Question on cadence. You mentioned a couple of different strategies for different situations. Do we have the choice of setting up multiple strategies for different settings, such as someone who schedules 6 months ahead versus someone who schedules 1 week ahead? Yes. So if you go through Weave, I can only speak for Weave. when you jump into the app and you're setting everything up, there's a lot of different options. And you can set up different programs for different people. Totally my understanding. And again, I would confirm that by jumping on a demo with the sales team. They'll walk you through. And listen, it's low pressure. I review these sales calls all the time. They can talk through your office, your specific situation, and really see if Weave's a good fit for you. So that should not be an issue, Karen, but recommend you jump on, go to getweave.com, fill out our demo form right there on the front page or on the home page. Get yourself a gift card and do that. And thank you, Dell, for the reminder. Top right, you can click that button and that'll get you to the demo form as well. That is used to help with last minute cancellations while on the phone. Do you have forms data on Verbage that is used to help with last minute cancellations while on the phone? Again, I just say I don't have that at my fingertips right now. We have blog posts and the Weave Helps section of our site. So Weave Helps, it's where we post all of the more in-depth articles on things like that, verbiage for last minute cancellations or whatever it might be. Jump into that, talk to the sales team thank you, Dell, to figure that out. Okay, well, hey, fantastic questions, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you for being here again. Go to getweave.com, check out our other webinars, and certainly hope you have a fantastic rest of the year and a happy new year, and that you can cut down on cancellations and no-shows moving into 2023. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.